Hello, and welcome to the Phoenix Burning Podcast. There is a phase of the Phoenix cycle where it burns and returns to ash, a phase we often overlook in favor of the more inspirational Phoenix Rising. However, sometimes we need to burn away the old before we're ready for the new. I am Veronika Archer, an intuitive guide and transformation coach. And in this podcast, I share my audio diary chronicling my burning phase. These recordings are completely raw and unfiltered, often recorded while I walk around outside in nature, and I release them to you in their unedited state in the hopes that you may find comfort, hope, and maybe some inspiration as you go through your burning.
Hello. On the day that I'm recording this, it is Friday, January 6th. So it's the end of week 1, and I am feeling completely prepared for my 6-month restorative experience. So this will be my last sort of catch-up recording, and then moving forward, I'll be sharing my weekly updates and letting you know how it's going. So there's 2 reasons why I'm now feeling really prepared. So first is some practical logistical structure stuff that I took care of that I'm going to share with you. And the second was a pretty big mindset shift that came to be yesterday in one of my meditative practices. It's interesting, and I'm curious if this is something you've experienced. I don't think this mindset shift is technically new, and I'm curious as you listen to it if it's something that you recall hearing in one of the other sessions. But it's something that landed with me very deeply yesterday, and I feel like it's really laying the foundation and setting the tone for this restorative experience. So I'm really excited about that. So that's why I'm popping in here again today. I think I've recorded almost every day this first week. And by the way, I'll just share briefly, if you're somebody who's preparing a restorative experience for yourself, you may encounter this as well, sort of this first week. And actually, it's been a couple weeks prior, so 3 weeks sort of altogether, a couple weeks of sort of really being in it. You know what I mean? Like, you're in your emotions, you're in your pain, you're feeling stuck. And knowing that I was going to do this. And in fact, during those 2 weeks when I was feeling quite bad, I was doing a lot of research. And I was researching, as you know, places I could go, things I could do, meal plans, just all kinds of different things. And I may have been a little bit kind of all over the place, but it feels like a necessary part of the process to just kind of wrap at least for me, this is how I work. I know different people approach things in different ways, but for me, it's often a necessary part of the process to really kind of jump in the pool of information and see what's out there and kind of wrap my brain around it. And then something starts to materialize and percolate from that. So that was an important part of the process. And then this past week, as you've seen, as I've been recording, has been about kind of laying a structure. I don't want to say laying a plan because that feels very goal-oriented. And of course, the point of this restorative experience is for it to be in flow, for it to be restful, and for it to not be action or goal-oriented. But the past few days, I have been really sitting with, the intention, the priorities, the structure of it, because that structure is what allows me to feel really held. So yesterday I sat down and I wrote a few intentions for my year, but really especially for the 6-month period. And one of the intentions that came out is it is my intention. I am committed to leading with being held. So a structure may be created that can sustain me, that's nourishing and sustaining in the long term. That's my intention. I am committed to leading with feeling held. So a structure can be created that is nourishing and sustaining in the long term. So I'm going to explain what that means because, I'm going to explain what that means. And the first thing I want to share is a structure that is nourishing and sustaining in the long term. I wrote this specifically thinking about my business. And if you're somebody out there starting a business or running a business, especially in the healing world, you may have experienced this where there's all these different methods out there, both, marketing methods and ways of organizing your business and things like that, that we are led to believe that we need to kind of drop our business into in order to be successful. And what I found is that for me, and quite honestly, all the people that I work with and some of my friends and colleagues as well, those structures are not in alignment with my soul, with my core self. And because of that, they can be draining to my energy, and therefore they're not sustainable in the long term. You may have also had a similar experience when you've implemented something new, maybe a new workout regimen or a new way of eating, a new way of being more efficient at your workplace. And you're all gung-ho and excited, and it lasts a week, a month, 6 months, but it's not sustainable in the long term. So that's one of my intentions, is to create structures that just feel so natural and so good and so nourishing to me that they remain. And then the second part, leading with feeling held, is perhaps the key for me for this restorative experience. So for me, this process, restorative process, this restoration time and this collapse, what I'm discovering as I sit with all the different things that are occurring and that I'm feeling is that this is really about my feminine energy not having been valued ever in this lifetime. And I believe if you subscribe to such thoughts in previous lifetimes, I have memories of previous lifetimes of some pretty horrific things that occurred. Just as an aside, if you're skeptical about previous lifetimes, another way that these memories may occur is simply through our DNA. That we are carrying, we know that our DNA is coded with so much more than what our scientists currently understand. We know that organs, for example, hold memories and can be transferred between people when the organs are transferred. So when we have these past life memories, it's possible that we're tapping into a segment of our DNA where that memory is stored. Regardless, it doesn't matter, because either way or any other way that those experiences may have occurred, they're in your system and they're impacting you. So I'm realizing that my feminine energy within myself has not been valued and has been devalued and beaten down pretty significantly. And this is a time for her to come forward. And in fact, it's a time on our planet, I believe, and on many others also, that feminine energy is rising. And I don't mean that in terms of the feminist movement or things like that. And I'm going to set this topic aside for now. Something that Sacred Sandy and I are discussing. If you want to pop over there and listen to our podcast and listen to our conversations over there. But basically, the original feminine energy, I'm not going to say original, the native feminine energy that has been suppressed for a long, long time is coming back out into the light. So this is an experience that a lot of people are going through. This recognizing that their feminine energy has not been valued or has been suppressed or has been abused. And now it's coming out. And much like somebody who's coming out of say like a POW, prisoner of war situation, or some kind of really traumatic experience, or maybe a long-term illness that they're recovering from, right? But my inner feminine is like that, like really beaten down, really ragged. And when somebody is being restored to health, who's been in a situation like that, like a POW or long-term illness, they're weak and they need to be held in terms of just going slow, good nourishment, resting a lot, those kinds of things. And I can see that that's what my inner feminine needs, and that's what's being expressed through my body right now. So I'm committed to leading with being held, committed to leading with feeling held. So what that means is at any moment when I'm making a decision, I'm feeling into my body, myself, my intuition, my inner feminine, and first asking, what would make you feel held right now? And if a decision is being asked of me, then asking the question, would this make you feel held? And that always comes first. Always comes first during this restoration period. I'm leading with that. As opposed to, hey, Veronika, or hey, inner feminine, I believe that what you need right now is X, Y, and Z. And I'm laying out a structure, and you are going to follow X, Y, and Z until you feel better. That would be leading with structure. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to make that clear. In general, in life, in all kinds of different places. However, for me right now, in this restoration period, I need to lead with feeling held. So leading with the feminine, leading with the flow. And that was part of the mindset shift that really sank in yesterday. Because something that I realized is that many of the things that I am currently doing and intending on doing during this restoration period are things that I've been trying to do for the past couple of years, like improving my eating habits, improving my taking care of my physical body, those kinds of things. And I kept not doing them. And I just had an epiphany. You guys get to experience my epiphanies with me. I'll share that in a moment. For the past couple of years, there have been certain things that I've really struggled with doing, and I've meditated on them. I've asked help from my spirit guides. I've done quantum healing sessions, and there's certain things that have not shifted. And I've been asking my spirit team, the energetic realms, to support me with figuring out what it is I need to do or not do or think or believe or shift or whatever in order to be able to do some of these things that I had not been able to get myself to do. And I realized that when I lead with feeling held, it feels so, even when I say it here to you, it feels so good in my body. Like my whole being is just like, oh, yes, yummy. Like you can't possibly say no to that. You can't possibly say no to feeling held. So for example, I'm hungry, and I can't remember if I shared this with you already. I think I have. I decided to, at least for the month of January, purchase a meal plan, a meal delivery service to provide about half of my meals to make it easier, feeling held, to make it easier for me to stick with my diet. So I'm hungry. What makes me feel held? Eating a really nourishing, pre-prepared meal that all I have to do is warm up. There's no prep. There's no cleanup. Comes in a container that I can throw away or recycle or reuse, right? But there's very minimal cleanup. Or, eating a bagel with cream cheese when I'm not supposed to eat grains or dairy, which makes me feel held. The former right? It does. Now, I will say that comes from a lot of internal work, right? So it's very different. I want to be clear that this in one of my earlier recordings, I shared that as you go through the healing process, you're going through different layers of healing. So I've already done a lot of work, right, for myself. And I generally don't have like a negative voice running in my mind, or I don't have, the little girl inside who's like, no, I want a cookie. And then you sort of have to do all this inner child work about, okay, maybe a cookie is not in your best interest right now. And right. So, that's all important work as well. But that's separate from what's occurring here. So I shared that because when I say what would make you feel held, I can hear, I'm projecting onto you, I can hear somebody who's listening to this going, well, what makes me feel held is a big bowl of ice cream, right? And so I'm not in that space. I know what I need in order to return to health, and experiencing that in the easiest way possible is what makes me feel held. So the epiphany that I just had when I was like, oh, I had an epiphany, was I realized I've been asking the universe for 2 years now to support me with figuring out why I can't seem to move forward with some of these really significant health things that I'm struggling with. And I keep essentially sabotaging myself. And I just realized that I received my answer. It's leading with my feminine. It's leading with feeling held, as opposed to, you must change your diet in order to feel better. You must stop eating these foods in order to feel better. That wasn't working for me. But leading with my feminine, knowing that I'm here to nurture her and restore her, makes everything feel really easy. So I just realized that I got my answer. And of course, the other friendly neighborhood dog here, barking in the background. The other aspect of what's really allowing this shift to happen for me, and really taking care of myself at a deeper level, is this understanding that it's all about my feminine having been really, I'll just say abused, for lack of a better word. Devalued keeps coming up. Somehow the word abuse doesn't feel quite right, but realizing that it's my feminine energy that's been really beaten down, and that it's my feminine energy that needs attention. Somehow putting my intention and my focus there is really allowing this to flow. And so I believe that a lot of the problems that I have struggled with, that I have not been able to shift, are actually linked to this inner feminine feeling beaten down. So if you followed my work, that this is something I talk about a lot, that when there's a pattern repeating, and when there's a pattern repeating that you can't shift, there's something going on underneath the surface. And identifying what's happening underneath the surface is the key to shifting it. And no amount of tools or structure or anything else is going to shift it until you understand the underlying cause. And this here is a perfect example. Something I've been struggling with for 2 years, something I've been meditating on, did quantum healing around, did all the things, and I couldn't see what it was that was underneath it all. I knew there was something underneath. I just didn't know what it was, and I couldn't find it. And I kept asking the universe to show me what it was, and poof. When you don't get a message, the universe will beat you over your freaking head with it. That's what just happened. I just realized that. Right? I know you've experienced that. Pretty much almost anyone who's ever worked with me or spoken with me has had that experience. The universe will freaking beat you over the head if you do not get the message. I just realized sorry, my spirit team is laughing with me right now. That's really funny. That's what happened, because for 2 years I've been like, universe, please show me, please help me, spirit guides, please guide me, please show me, please tell me. And I wasn't getting it, and I wasn't getting it. And so they were like, here, health crisis. Physical health crisis that you cannot ignore. Topped off with some grief and emotional pain. Oh my goodness. So, just know that if you are someone who speaks to the universe, your God, your spirit team, and you feel like you're not getting an answer, don't worry. It will come. It might take 2 years. And when it comes, it may be like being hit by a Mack truck. But they're listening, and it'll come. So my epiphany is that it was my inner feminine being beaten down. And what's connected with that is what I discovered is that what I realized just this morning in meditation. So my mom does not, I'll just say she's a man hater. That wasn't what I discovered. I've known that for a long time. Not overt. Everything my mom does is covert, right? So she's not one of those women that when you meet is just talking smack about men all the time. But she is a man hater. And my sister, who I was very close with when I was young, was only a year older than me, is more stereotypically feminine. I was always more stereotypically masculine in terms of, I was into sports, and I was, I sort of had that structure productivity thing that we associate. I was protective. I was focused on my career later, although, anyways, nurture or nature, right? Which one came first? But my sister was more traditionally feminine, and my mom really groomed me to be more masculine. So my mom pretty much ignored my brother. It was my sister and my brother. And then my mom and my dad, as far as I could see, did not have a close relationship. My dad was very absent. He was physically present, but he was a workaholic and just, pretty much worked all the time. I don't have memories of him and my mom, engaging with each other very much. So it was really my mom and my sister and I, the three of us, were like the triad in our house. And something I discovered quite some time ago is that I was put in that trio, I was the masculine energy. And so that's one of the reasons why I've really been in my masculine energy for so much of my life. So I realized that a while back, but the epiphany I had this morning was the connection between the two. I was groomed to be in my masculine energy. My mom is a man hater. Therefore, if I am in my masculine, I am on the team of those who are not good enough. Men are yucky, men are not good enough. By the way, men, if you're a man listening, I don't believe this, right? Anymore. Certainly there was some element that was imprinted in me. I adore men, and the negative messages that we have right now in our society around men is really damaging. That's a topic for another time. The epiphany that I had was that I was now on the team of the not good enough, right? And I realized that I have this sort of very deep level of, there's some level of not being worthy. I'm not worthy of being feminine, because feminine is better, feminine is good. Feminine is what my sister was. Feminine is what I should aspire to. However, I'm not good enough, according to my mom, to be feminine. So I must be masculine, and I'm on the team of not good enough. So this restorative period is about really adoring, nurturing my inner feminine, and leading from that space. And it's that mindset shift that is making this feel more at ease, rather than I have to abide to some structure. So I popped in here to share with you that I'm ready to start my restoration. And part of that was putting together the structure. So I put together a schedule for myself. And what I did is blocked time, which I love doing anyway. If you've worked with me or listened to me before, you may have heard me talk about blocking time. It was interesting because I struggled with this a little bit. And I realized that the reason I was struggling with it is because I was leading from structure. And I was like, okay, from 7 to 8, I'm going to do this. And from 8 to 9, and that wasn't working. So then I decided to lead with being held. Okay, what times of days are you most productive? Okay, let's write those down. What times of days is it hard for you to be productive? What types of rest do you want? So, we meditate, we go for walks, we practice presence, all those things. So when I shifted away from the structure and the schedule and moved into starting with what feels good, and then the structure came around it. So where I landed was, I'm going to share this with you in the event you're following along and might help. And I will share how it changes over time. So I landed with 6 hours of what I'm calling action blocks each day. So those are times when I'm meeting with clients or doing. Those are times that I'm doing. Might not be for work. It may also just be, all the things you need to do. Pay your bills and run errands and all those kinds of things. So 6 hours of action blocks. 5 hours of restorative blocks. So those are sitting in meditation, sitting in presence, fun and pleasure. Or I have some fun and pleasure time incorporated in there. And then, so you may notice my action blocks are larger than my restorative blocks, so we'll see. But then 5 hours of daily needs stuff, So I put that separate from those two. So that's, walking my dog, which can be quite restorative. It's eating meals. It's getting ready for the day, showering, doing your hair, all those kinds of things. So 5 hours of daily needs, 5 hours of restoration, 6 hours of action blocks, and 8 hours of sleep. If you're keeping track, that should come out to 24 hours, 8 hours of sleep. So that's the structure that I've put in place. And I've put it in place for a couple reasons. One is, as I mentioned, structure helps me, makes me feel held. And then also, the other part of it is I discovered that my life, to be honest, is pretty slow and relaxed already. However, I find myself slipping into guilt. So I'm sitting in my meditation chair, just whatever, chilling in between sessions. And I'm like, I really ought to be cleaning the dishes, or I really ought to be doing something quote unquote productive. So this schedule is in essence codifying what maybe I'm already doing to some degree, but it's giving me permission to take those rest blocks rather than sitting there feeling guilty that I'm sitting there, which is counterproductive. You're not really resting if you're spending your time chastising yourself or feeling guilty. Again, I don't really chastise myself anymore. I no longer have that inner dialogue of negativity, but I do have feelings, and so the guilt will come in. So that's how it shows up for me. So that's what the schedule is for. And my intention is to lead with feeling held. So on any given day, I have permission to adjust the schedule to rest more or to be more active. I tend to have spurts of creativity and spurts of depletion, and so honoring those cycles. So I'm always leading with feeling held, always leading with rest, and reminding myself that this is a period of restoration. Because even as I was preparing that schedule, I found myself getting into sort of doing mode, like, oh, in this hour you can do this, and in that hour you can do that. And it started feeling like, a lot of doing. So I had to scale back and remind myself that this is for rest. Okay, so now you know my mindset shift that is really helping me kick off this period of restoration, which is leading with feeling held. It is centering my inner feminine and allowing her, all actions are around healing her, adoring her, letting her know that she is valued. It's interesting, actually. It's a little bit like inner child work, except it's with my inner feminine. So that's interesting. So that's my mindset shift. That's really allowing this this to feel like it has a lot of ease around it. I have my structure in place to support me with keeping kind of my daily rhythms. I'll say, instead of schedule, keeping my daily rhythms. And one thing I'm adding is I'm going to be asking my inner feminine, what does she need to feel adored? And really prioritizing doing those things, whatever that may be, whether it's resting, whether it's beautifying my space, whatever it is that she needs. So I'm going to be asking myself that question on a regular basis. So I feel all those things make me feel really ready to start. Having my meal delivery feels really good as well. And so I'm starting with, that's my restoration right now, following that rhythm and really asking myself those questions each day. And then what I am asking my spirit team, so I will be sharing with you all questions I ask my spirit team, so you can see if and how. I don't even want to say if, because it always comes to fruition, but you can see how those questions are answered. So my question for my spirit team is, where am I going to be living? Because I have been feeling for quite some time that I want to move out of the place that I'm in now. It just feels icky to me. And it feels expensive to me, given that my children are not currently living with me. It just feels not right. But at this moment, I don't know what that change is going to look like. And I'm okay with that. But I would like to have a decision, if possible, if it's in the highest intention for it to happen in this time frame. I would like to have a decision by the end of January as to whether or not I am staying here and beautifying it and finding ways to make it more affordable, or if I am leaving. So that's one thing I'm asking for guidance on from my spirit, my energy realm. And then the other part of my original retreat idea, I had originally wanted to go someplace where I could meditate with others, or have yoga available regularly. And I do feel like I want my dharma, is that the right word? I think it is. My spiritual community, so that, because right now, you may notice I'm doing everything myself, right? I've created my structure, I've ordered my meals, and it's feeling okay. But I know that I do better in community. And there's a lot of resources available to me that I have used in the past that for various reasons aren't feeling right. I used to belong to a yoga studio and they changed their classes, and anyways, and I would prefer for it to be in person. I have some online resources. I'd prefer for it to be in person, and I'd prefer for it to not be far. Which is why originally I was like, going to an ashram would be great, so that everything is just present right there. So those are my questions for the energy realm. Where am I living? And please allow me to encounter my community that will help with this restoration. So meditation and yoga or stretching or massage, healing arts, spiritual community and healing arts. So those are the two questions that I'm putting out to my spirit team. And I will check back with y'all in a week, if not sooner. and let you know how all those things are progressing.